One wheat penny sold for $80,000. 80,000 for a single 1 cent coin. The kind your grandparents may have tossed into a coffee can, an old cigar box, or a forgotten jar years ago. Most people would not even think twice if they found one in their pocket. But some of these ordinary-looking pennies have turned out to be worth a small fortune. Here is the surprising part. Wheat pennies are still found in old collections, inherited coin jars, and occasionally in circulation. And while most are only worth a little more than face value, a handful of rare dates and error varieties have sold for incredible amounts. In this video, you'll discover 5 wheat pennies with a combined potential value of more than $110,000. I'll show you the exact years, mint marks, and key features collectors look for so you'll know what to check before spending another old penny. So grab every wheat penny you can find, empty the coin jar, open that old box that's been sitting on the shelf for years. Because the number 1 coin on this list is one of the most famous wheat penny varieties ever discovered. And collectors are still searching for authentic examples today. Number 5. The 1946 wheat penny looks like an ordinary coin from the years right after World War II. But one rare variety hides a tiny mark inside the word Liberty that most people never notice. Collectors have paid up to $2,500 for the right example. This is known as the buy-die crack. As a coin die wears out, it can develop small cracks. When molten metal is forced into one of those cracks during striking, it creates a raised line on every coin struck by that damaged die. On some 1946 wheat pennies, a crack forms between the B and E in Liberty, creating what looks like a tiny capital 1. Instead of reading Liberty, the word appears to read Bayardy. That tiny extra line is what collectors call the buy error. Now grab a magnifying glass and look closely at the word Liberty on the left side of your coin. Focus on the space between the B and the E. If you see a small raised vertical line between those letters, you may have found the buy-die crack. Make sure it is actually raised above the surface and not just a scratch. The stronger and more clearly defined that extra line is, the more desirable the coin becomes. Buy-die cracks are a favorite among Lincoln cent collectors because they only appear on certain worn dies. While they exist on several wheat penny dates, strong examples on a 1946 cent are much harder to find, especially in higher grades. Since most people never inspect the lettering that closely, many have been spent or overlooked for decades. One collector bought a $5 jar of wheat pennies at a yard sale. As he examined each coin under a loupe, he spotted a tiny raised line between the B and E on a 1946 cent. After the coin was authenticated by a professional grading service, it later sold for approximately $2,500, turning a simple yard sale purchase into an incredible discovery. So check your 1946 wheat penny carefully. Look inside the word Liberty for that tiny raised line between the B and E. If you find a genuine buy-die crack, you could be holding a coin worth up to $2,500. But the next penny hides its secret in the mint mark, where the same letter was stamped twice. Number 4. The 1956 D wheat penny. At first glance, it looks like just another old penny. Millions were struck in Denver and most people would never give one a second look. But hidden beneath the date is a tiny detail so easy to miss that countless collectors have spent years searching for it. It is an error that most people overlook completely. In fact, many of these pennies have been spent, rolled, and passed from hand to hand because no one realized what they were holding. Yet the right example has sold for thousands of dollars and remains one of the most popular Lincoln cent varieties ever discovered. The secret is hidden in the mint mark. That small letter D below the date tells you the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Today, mint marks are added to the master die, so every working die is identical. But back in the 1950s, things were done very differently. Each working die received its mint mark by hand. A mint employee placed a steel punch over the die and struck it with a hammer. If the first punch landed too high, too low, or at the wrong angle, it had to be punched again. When the second punch failed to line up perfectly with the first, both impressions remained in the die forever. Every coin struck from that die carried the exact same mistake. That error is known as a repunched mint mark, or RPM. Now here is what makes this variety so exciting. The mistake is incredibly small, but once you know where to look, you can never unsee it. Instead of one clean D, you'll notice traces of another D hiding underneath or beside the main mint mark. Sometimes the second impression peeks out from the left, sometimes from the right. On stronger examples, the extra impression is surprisingly easy to spot under magnification. It is like finding the fingerprint of the die itself, frozen into the coin forever. So grab your 1956 D wheat penny and examine the mint mark carefully. A simple coin loop with 10 times magnification is usually enough. Tilt the coin slowly under a bright light. Does the D look perfectly normal, or do you see extra curves, split edges, or part of another D underneath it? Genuine repunched mint marks show clear, rounded doubling because both impressions were part of the die before the coin was ever struck. That is very different from machine doubling, which usually looks flat, shelf-like, or smeared. Machine doubling happens during the strike and generally carries little or no premium. A true RPM shows distinct separation between two separate punch impressions. Collectors have been fascinated by repunched mint marks for decades because they represent a part of U.S. mint history that can never happen again. Once mint marks were added directly to the master die, this entire class of varieties disappeared. That makes older RPMs especially appealing. Every genuine example tells the story of a mint worker correcting a tiny mistake that accidentally created a collectible treasure. Strong RPMs on the 1956 D are not common, especially in higher grades. Most entered circulation immediately and spent decades changing hands. They picked up scratches, wear, and damage long before anyone thought to inspect the mint mark. Finding one today with a bold repunched D and attractive original surfaces is far more difficult than most people imagine. That combination of scarcity, historical significance, and collector demand is exactly what gives these coins their value. One collector learned that lesson by accident. While sorting through a small box of wheat pennies inherited from a family member, he noticed something unusual about one coin. The mint mark looked almost blurry, but not because it was worn. Under a loop, a second D appeared beneath the first. Unsure what he had found, he compared it with photographs of known RPM varieties and realized it matched perfectly. The coin was sent to a professional grading service, authenticated as a genuine repunched mint mark, and later sold to a Lincoln cent specialist for several $1,000s. What looked like an ordinary penny turned out to be the standout coin in the entire collection. So before you ignore another 1956 D wheat penny, take a few extra seconds to inspect that tiny mint mark below the date. It may look insignificant, but it could reveal one of the most desirable mint mark varieties of the wheat penny series. A strong, authenticated example in excellent condition can be worth thousands of dollars, making it well worth a careful look before you spend it. But the next wheat penny features doubling that doesn't stop at the mint mark. It spreads across the design itself, creating one of the boldest and most dramatic varieties collectors hope to find. Number 3. The 1952 wheat penny may not look like anything special at first. Most people would pass it by without a second thought. But one rare variety carries one of the most dramatic double die errors of the wheat penny series. The doubling is so bold that, on the right coin, you can often spot it without expensive equipment. And exceptional examples have sold for up to $10,000. The secret isn't hidden in the mint mark or buried in a tiny detail. It's right on the front of the coin. This is known as a double die obverse. During the die making process, the working die receives multiple impressions from the hub that transfers the design. If the die shifts slightly between those impressions, it permanently records two images instead of one. Every coin struck by that die carries the exact same doubling in exactly the same locations. Unlike damage that happens after the coin leaves the mint, this mistake is part of the die itself and was created before the first coin was ever struck. On the 1952 doubled die, the strongest doubling usually appears on "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and sometimes the date. Instead of crisp single letters, you'll notice characters that appear thicker than normal, with a second rounded image beside the original. Once you recognize genuine double die doubling, it immediately stands out from an ordinary coin. Now take a close look at your own 1952 wheat penny. Start with "In God We Trust" across the top. Then move to "Liberty" on the left side, followed by the date. Do the letters appear unusually bold? Can you see a second image beside them with clear separation? That's exactly what collectors hope to find. But here's where many people make a costly mistake. They confuse machine doubling with a genuine double die. Machine doubling happens during the striking process and usually creates flat shelf-like edges that look smeared or pushed sideways. It is very common and usually adds little or no value. A true double die is completely different. The doubling is rounded, fully raised, and shows distinct separation because it was built directly into the die before any coins were struck. Learning the difference can save you from overlooking a valuable variety or mistakenly thinking an ordinary coin is rare. Strong double die varieties from the wheat penny era are highly sought after because relatively few escaped into circulation. Once mint employees discovered a defective die, it was normally removed from service and replaced. That limited the number of coins produced before the error disappeared. Decades later, many surviving examples have become worn from circulation, making sharply detailed pieces much harder to find. Collectors are always searching for well-preserved examples with bold, unmistakable doubling. One collector discovered that firsthand while helping clean out his grandfather's home. Inside an old cigar box were hundreds of wheat pennies collected over a lifetime. At first, they looked like ordinary pocket change, but one 1952 cent caught his attention because the lettering seemed unusually thick. Under magnification, the doubling became obvious. After comparing it with known double die varieties, he sent the coin for professional authentication. It was confirmed as a genuine double die obverse, and when it was later offered at auction, competitive bidding pushed the final price to approximately $10,000. What looked like a simple 1-cent coin became the most valuable item in the entire box. So before you spend or ignore another 1952 wheat penny, take a few moments to inspect the lettering on the front. Study "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date under good lighting. If you find bold, rounded, well-separated doubling that matches a genuine double die variety, you could be holding a coin worth thousands of dollars. It might look like an ordinary penny, but to the right collector, it could be an extraordinary discovery. But the next wheat penny hides its value in a mistake that is much smaller and even easier to miss. Number 2. The 1940 S wheat penny may look like just another old cent, but one rare variety has collectors searching for it year after year. The small S mint mark tells you it was struck in San Francisco, and on a special version of this coin, that tiny letter was punched into the die twice. The result is one of the most desirable repunched mint mark varieties in the entire wheat penny series. Exceptional certified examples have sold for up to $12,000. The secret is hidden in one of the smallest details on the coin. During the 1940s, mint marks were still added to each working die by hand. A mint employee placed a steel punch on the die and struck it with a hammer. If the first impression landed slightly off-center, another punch was used to correct it. When those two impressions failed to line up perfectly, both remained in the die forever. Every coin struck from that die carried the exact same overlapping mint mark. On the 1940 S wheat penny, the second S can often be seen peeking out from behind the primary mint mark, creating what collectors call the S over S repunched mint mark. At first glance, the mint mark may look perfectly normal, but under magnification, the hidden variety begins to reveal itself. Instead of one clean S, you may notice extra curves extending from the top or bottom of the letter. On stronger examples, the second S is surprisingly obvious, almost like a shadow sitting directly beneath the main mint mark. Once you know what to look for, it becomes much easier to recognize. Now grab your 1940 S wheat penny and examine the mint mark below the date using a 10x coin loop or magnifying glass. Rotate the coin slowly under a bright light. Do you see one crisp S, or are there extra curves showing beneath it? A genuine RPM will display clear, rounded impressions from two separate punches. Don't confuse it with machine doubling, which usually appears flat, shelf-like, or smeared. A true repunched mint mark shows distinct separation because both impressions were made during the creation of the die itself, long before the coin was struck. Here's another detail that many collectors overlook. Condition matters just as much as the variety. A heavily worn example may still attract interest, but the biggest prices are reserved for coins with full original mint luster, sharp details, and especially original red color. Copper coins naturally darken over time, so finding a 1940 SRPM that still retains its bright red surfaces decades later is extremely difficult. That combination of a scarce variety and outstanding preservation is exactly what advanced Lincoln cent collectors are willing to pay a premium for. The 1940 SS over S RPM has been recognized and collected for decades. Because the variety is well documented, specialists actively search dealer inventories, estate collections, and old wheat penny jars, hoping to find one that has gone unnoticed. Many examples spent years in circulation before anyone knew they were collectible, making attractive high-grade survivors increasingly difficult to locate today. One experienced collector learned just how valuable this variety could be while searching through an old dealer's stock box filled with common wheat pennies. Most buyers passed over the coins without a second glance. But after spotting a 1940 S, he examined the mint mark under his loupe and immediately noticed the second S beneath the first. The coin still displayed beautiful original red color and almost no signs of circulation. After professional authentication and grading, it was confirmed as a genuine S over S repunched mint mark. When it eventually crossed the auction block, competitive bidding from Lincoln cent specialists pushed the final price to approximately $12,000. So before you overlook another 1940 S wheat penny, take a closer look at that tiny S below the date. It could be hiding one of the most famous repunched mint mark varieties in the series. If you find clear overlapping impressions, strong original detail, and attractive red color, you may be holding a coin worth thousands of dollars. And now it's time for number one, the most valuable wheat penny you could realistically discover in an old coin jar, inherited collection, or forgotten box of spare change. Number 1. The 1944 D wheat penny is the undisputed crown jewel of this list. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary penny, but one incredibly rare version was struck on the wrong metal entirely. Instead of copper, it was struck on a leftover steel planchet, creating one of the most famous error coins in American history. Today, exceptional authenticated examples have sold for up to $80,000, and collectors still dream of finding one. To understand why this coin is so valuable, you have to go back to World War II. In 1943, copper was desperately needed for the war effort, so the U.S. Mint temporarily stopped making pennies from copper and produced them from zinc-coated steel instead. Those silver-colored 1943 steel cents became one of the most recognizable coins ever made. The following year, in 1944, the mint returned to using copper. But a few 1943 steel planches were accidentally left behind inside the presses. When those leftover blanks were struck with 1944 dies, they created one of the rarest off-metal errors in the entire Lincoln cent series. The result was a 1944 penny made of steel, even though every normal 1944 D cent should have been struck on a copper planche. That single production mistake transformed an ordinary 1-cent coin into a legendary rarity. Every genuine example tells the story of a tiny oversight at the mint that survived quality control and entered circulation. Unlike many minor varieties that require magnification to identify, this error practically announces itself the moment you see it. Now take a close look at your 1944 D wheat penny. The very first clue is its color. A normal coin from 1944 will appear brown, reddish-brown, or red copper depending on its condition, but a genuine steel cent looks completely different. It has a silver-gray appearance that immediately stands out from every other wheat penny of that year. If your coin looks silver instead of copper, don't dismiss it as being cleaned or damaged. It deserves a closer inspection. The next step is the easiest test of all. Grab a small magnet. A normal copper penny will not stick to a magnet. A genuine 1944 steel cent will, because steel is magnetic. That simple test has helped identify some of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever discovered. If your silver-colored 1944 D sticks firmly to a magnet, you found a coin that deserves immediate professional attention. If you have access to a precise digital scale, weigh the coin as well. A standard copper 1944 wheat penny weighs about 3.18 grams, while a steel cent weighs approximately 2.70 grams. Color, magnetic attraction, and the correct weight together provide strong evidence that the coin may have been struck on the wrong planche. Of course, authentication by a respected grading service is essential, because altered coins and counterfeits do exist. The 1944 steel cent is one of the most celebrated error coins in American numismatics because so few genuine examples escaped the mint. Across all three mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, only a tiny number are known today. That extreme rarity is exactly what fuels collector demand. Museums display them. Advanced collectors compete fiercely whenever one appears for sale. Even experienced coin hunters can spend a lifetime searching without ever seeing one in person. One remarkable discovery began with nothing more than a handful of pocket change. A teenager noticed that one of his 1944 pennies looked silver instead of copper. He thought it was unusual, but instead of spending it, he tucked it away in a drawer where it remained for years. Much later, after learning about the famous 1944 steel cent, he tested it with a magnet. It stuck immediately. The coin was eventually submitted to a professional grading service, where experts confirmed it was a genuine 1944 D steel wheat penny struck on a leftover steel planche. When it crossed the auction block, collectors recognized just how extraordinary it was. Intense bidding followed, and the coin ultimately realized more than $80,000, all because someone took a second look at what appeared to be an ordinary penny. So here's your mission. Pull out every 1944 wheat penny you own. Start with the color. If one looks silver instead of copper, don't ignore it. Test it with a magnet. If it sticks, don't clean it, don't polish it, and don't spend it. Store it safely and have it authenticated by a professional grading service. You could be holding one of the rarest and most valuable Lincoln wheat pennies ever produced, an incredible reminder that sometimes the biggest treasures are hiding in the smallest coins. So there you have it. 5 Lincoln wheat pennies with a combined potential value of more than $110,000. The incredible part is that these coins haven't disappeared. Some are still sitting in old coin jars, cigar boxes, family collections, and forgotten drawers that haven't been opened in decades. And because most people assume every wheat penny is worth just 1 cent, valuable discoveries continue to slip through the cracks every year. Now I want to hear from you. Which wheat penny do you already have? Is it a 1944D, a 1952, a 1940S, or another date entirely? Drop the year and mint mark in the comments below. I read as many comments as I can, and if you have something interesting, I'll help point you in the right direction and tell you what to check next. If you enjoyed this hunt, tap the like button and follow the channel. Every week, I cover rare coins, valuable errors, and hidden varieties that could be sitting in everyday collections. If you're on Facebook, you can also follow Coin Hunt Daily, where I share even more coins and collecting tips. And here's one last challenge. Share this video with someone who keeps old coins, a parent, grandparent, friend, or anyone with a forgotten coin jar tucked away in a closet. You never know. They might already own a rare wheat penny without realizing it. If you're not finished hunting yet, you're in luck. I just put together another video featuring more than $144,000 worth of rare quarters, dimes, half dollars, and dollar coins that collectors are still searching for today. Click that video now, and let's see if your next incredible coin is waiting there. I'll see you in the next one.